Many people think that hallmarks of a successful movie boil down to critical reception and box office revenue. Of course, those are pretty darn important things to consider, but there's another piece of the puzzle that's just as, if not more important, and that's staying power. A good movie needs staying power in order to become a classic. Do you remember the flick that won Nicolas Cage an Oscar? Probably not. It's Leaving Las Vegas, by the way, but there's no shadow of a doubt you remember his performance in the Wicker Man remake, despite the film being a financially unsuccessful, critically panned mess. So with that being said, I'm Jem from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 huge horror movies that were instantly forgotten. Number 10, 2022's It Chapter 2. There was a time when Pennywise the Dancing Clown dominated cinema as the 2017 release of It captivated audiences. It's still remembered today for its great horror moments, the terrifying performance from Bill Skarsgård as the killer clown, and the incredible chemistry from the main cast. Why is it then that the sequel is about as well remembered as A Night of Drinking Tequila? It Chapter 2 was set to be the epic conclusion to this massive success story. However, while it got a substantial release and made a massive profit, although still hundreds of millions less than its predecessor, it failed to capture even a fraction of the first movie's impact. There are many reasons why the film drew less admiration, with a lot of it coming down to the fact that the Pennywise appears and scares one of the protagonists structure was painfully repetitive. On top of that, it attempted to combine the kid and adult versions of the cast, with flashbacks constantly taking you out of the action. Had it simply told the story from the perspective of the adult characters, it might have been talked about a little bit longer. Number 9, 2023's Thanksgiving. Remember when Eli Roth made a wicked slasher movie based on Thanksgiving holiday? It only came out in 2023, yet no one has been talking about it after its release. That was barely even a blink ago. How could it have been forgotten already? Thanksgiving, a feature-length adaptation of Roth's parody movie trailer from 2007's Grindhouse, is an enjoyable horror full of gore and humour. It kicked up some positive critical reviews and generated a healthy box office draw. Heck, people didn't even complain much about TikTok star Addison Rae appearing in it. They were just happy to come along for the ride. Despite all of this, Thanksgiving seemed to disappear immediately after its release. It appears the culprit could be just how paint by numbers the flick is. While it's fun, there's nothing special about Thanksgiving. For example, the killer's look and weapon aren't anything new, and the ultimate reveal won't surprise many. Characters like Megan make an impact because they feel fresh, but the only fresh thing in this picture is the turkey you might eat while watching it. There is a sequel in development, so Thanksgiving might get a second wind, but still, the drop-off this flick had is astounding. Number 8, Hellraiser. You would think that a solid remake of a beloved horror franchise would drum up some cultural relevance, wouldn't you? Yep, Hellraiser 2022 stands as a forgotten gem despite its massive franchise namesake. If you don't know Hellraiser, then go out and watch the series. Sure, most of it's bad, but it's some of the gnarliest horror you'll find. With that in mind, one thing it does have going for it is that the franchise's attempt to reboot is pretty great. It is flawed, but the gore, creativity, and performance from Jamie Clayton as the priest more than makes up for those flaws. Now, Hellraiser 2022 was not a box office success, but it was never gonna be, as the main goal was for it to be a streaming success for Hulu, which it was. The movie garnered significant viewership, even landing as the most streamed movie in the US during the first week of October. Sadly, the franchise has once again fallen off the face of the earth. There is some talk of a sequel, but nothing's concrete yet, and this rebooted franchise lies in limbo. Number 7, 2010's Devil. For as much as people dunk on M. Night Shyamalan, it's hard to think of any movies he's attached to that aren't well remembered. The Sixth Sense, Signs, The Village, Split, Old, and the list goes on. Truthfully, it's downright incredible that despite how awful so many of his flicks are, they're all culturally significant. Still, you can't win them all. And one that has really been left by the wayside is this devilish flick. Devil, written by Brian Nelson and directed by John Eric Deldel, based on a story by Shyamalan, is a simple yet haunting movie. It follows a group of strangers stuck in an elevator as paranormal events occur around them. The film is far from great, but also far from awful. There's enough mystery and panic sewn in to keep it fun, and this seemed to resonate with audiences as it scored a whopping $60 million from a $10 million budget. Yet, when exploring Shyamalan's best-known movies, you will not see this one sitting near the top of the list. It quickly faded from the scene, possibly because, unlike many of his stories, the twist ending was not a massive shock, and there was little flavour to the final product. Number 6. 2002's Red Dragon. The Hannibal Lecter movies are hilariously hit and miss. The Silence of the Lambs is an era-defying classic, the later sequel Hannibal is a ridiculous yet entertaining ride, and the prequel, Red Dragon, which remade Michael Mann's Manhunter adaptation, was a healthy middle between those two. Sadly, that position as neither the best nor worst garnered a different fate for the film. It led to it being forgotten. There's much to love in Red Dragon, including Ralph Fiennes' hair-raising performance as the Tooth Fairy, the compelling protagonist Will Graham, the overall thrilling tone, and another superb turn as Hannibal Lecter from Anthony Hopkins. Plus, in typical Hannibal fashion, it made the big bucks. Still, when talking about the Lecter movies now, Red Dragon tends to fly under the radar. The enormity of The Silence of the Lambs is unforgettable. The bizarreness of Hannibal is seared into our brains. And yet Red Dragon stands as a perfectly great but less remembered piece of the franchise. Hannibal Rising could have also made it here if it had actually been successful. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're there, drop us a like, share and subscribe too. Number 5. 2013's Mama. Mama is a movie that had some red-hot prospects back in 2013. It had the illustrious name of Guillermo del Toro attached, was the directorial debut of Andy Muschietti, who was the director of It Chapter 2 and sadly makes it onto this list twice, and had a Game of Thrones star in the first major movie role following the show's success. Now, the film didn't manage to dazzle critics, with many complaining about its confusing script and terrible CGI, but thankfully for Mama, that did not matter, as these prospects helped it make some happy trips to the bank, earning nearly 10 times its original budget. That's impressive. However, what is less impressive is how soon audiences forgot about the movie. Mama's cultural impact quickly faded into nothingness as it became lost in the shuffle of successful supernatural horror pictures released in the 2010s. Now, it stands as a forgotten flick with a proposed sequel that never happened, and a legacy mainly centered on the awful CGI of the titular Mama. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Number 4. Alien Covenant 2017. If there's one thing you can say about the Alien franchise, it is that each film is memorable. Is that always a good thing? No. Have you seen Alien 3 or AVP? They are ridiculously bad movies. However, with that said, there is one film that doesn't get to be called memorable, as it has all the impact of a slap from a toddler. That movie is Alien Covenant. The most recent Alien movie is perhaps the safest one in the series. It got a substantial release and made plenty of money, but the overall lack of originality made it deeply forgettable. It's a competently made film, but it almost reads like a clip show of great horror moments from throughout the franchise, with none of the emotional investment. Ask any horror fan for their thoughts and feelings on Alien, Aliens, Resurrection or Prometheus, and you'll get plenty of opinions. But ask about Covenant, and you'll watch them try and remember if they've even seen or heard of it. Fingers crossed that the upcoming Alien Romulus isn't more of the same. Number 3. 2012's Dark Shadows. Dark Shadows is a movie with 3 names that usually spell out memorable with a capital M: Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, and Tim Burton. This beloved trio have created multiple classics like Sweeney Todd, Alice in Wonderland, and Corpse Bride. Dark Shadows, however, is not one of their better works. The film, which adapts the gothic soap opera TV series of the same name, is campy yet bland family-friendly horror that felt like everyone involved was resting on their laurels. It was safe, easy, and ultimately lacking a sense of passion. That translated to audiences as well, with the most passionate response garnered when asking someone about it nowadays being, is that the one where Johnny Depp played a vampire? Despite the lukewarm critical reception and the film's instant evaporation from popular culture, there's no denying it was a runaway success. The flick made a lot of money and had a huge advertisement campaign, which makes it all the more shocking that it faded so quickly after its theatrical run. Dark Shadows proves that even those at the top of their game can still make something people forget about. Number 2. 2015's Crimson Peak. Who could have possibly expected to see the name Guillermo del Toro come up so often in a list of forgotten movies? His work is usually the textbook definition of unforgettable, yet here he is again. Crimson Peak is a stylish gothic horror that you'll watch once or twice, enjoy just about enough, and then probably never think about again. This twisted period drama tells a gruesome ghost story with some major bite to it, so why is it collecting dust on the back shelf of Del Toro's movie library? Let's start with the film's plus points, which are obvious at a mere glance. The set design, costumes, acting, and general tone are captivating. Sadly, the story is lackluster, with the plot and characters feeling half-baked. It's also painfully predictable and lacks anything you haven't seen elsewhere. Crimson Peak got a big push when coming out of the gates, but it struggled at the box office. Since then, rather than growing as a cult classic, it faded into obscurity. It is a shame to see a movie this pretty pass by, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. And number 1, 2018's Bird Box. This creative sci-fi horror is one of Netflix's most watched movies of all time. It was so huge that you couldn't talk to anyone without asking them, "Have you seen Bird Box?" But now most people think, oh yeah, that was the thing, wasn't it? Based on the novel of the same name by Josh Mullivan, Bird Box captured the fear of a post-apocalyptic world where using your eyes could lead to certain death. It was a compelling horror story about a woman protecting 2 children from harsh entities that will make you kill yourself after you look at them. But despite the success, Bird Box really did come and go. The picture had its time in the sun, but everyone stopped talking about it as soon as that sun left. That flash-in-the-pan success is evident from the cold lack of enthusiasm for the spin-off movie. Bird Box is perhaps one of the firmest examples of how movie streaming works nowadays. Something comes along and trends for a time, but then fails to integrate into the mainstream, inevitably making way for the next attempt to do so.